A 19-year-old kid picks up a wrench and starts learning plumbing. No debt, no tuition, just a paycheck on Friday and a small apartment he can actually afford. That same year, across town, another kid starts pre-med. He's smart, he works hard, he gives up his entire 20s. By the time he's a licensed physician, he's 32 years old, $240,000 in debt, and hasn't had a single year, not one, where he was actually building savings instead of just surviving. 20 years later, the plumber owns 3 trucks, has 2 guys working under him, and is sitting on a paid-off house and $800,000 in retirement savings. The doctor is still paying off student loans. His BMW payment is $1,100 a month. The house in the right neighborhood cost him $950,000, and if he misses 4 months of work, just 4 months, it all falls apart. This isn't a hypothetical. This is a pattern so well documented in financial research that economists have a name for it, and yet almost nobody talks about it. Here's the thing people get completely backwards. Income is not wealth. They're not the same thing. They never were. A doctor earning $350,000 a year sounds rich. In terms of cash coming in, yes, it's a lot of money. But cash coming in means nothing if the same amount or more is flying right back out. What actually makes you wealthy is the gap, the distance between what you earn and what you spend. Keep that gap wide for long enough and you build something real. Narrow it down to nothing, and you're just running on a very expensive treadmill. Thomas Stanley figured this out in 1996. He spent years interviewing actual millionaires in America. Not people who looked rich, not people with expensive cars, but people with real net worth. And what he found in his book, The Millionaire Next Door, genuinely surprised people. The typical American millionaire didn't drive a luxury car, didn't live in a prestigious neighborhood. Most of them were small business owners, skilled tradespeople, and self-employed contractors. Doctors and lawyers were dramatically underrepresented. Despite being some of the highest-earning professions in the country. Honestly, the first time I read that finding, I had to read it twice because it runs completely against what we're taught to believe about success. Let's get specific, because numbers tell this story better than anything else. A plumber starts working at 19. Let's say he earns $45,000 in his first year. Nothing spectacular. He lives cheaply, the way most 19-year-olds do, and he starts putting $400 a month into an index fund. That's it. Just $400 a month starting at 19. A future doctor, same age, same year, starts pre-med. She doesn't put $400 anywhere because she doesn't have $400. She's taking on debt just to survive. 4 years of undergrad, 4 years of medical school, then 3 to 7 years of residency, where she's technically working, making about $60,000 a year as a resident, but also paying interest on $240,000 in loans the whole time. She starts her actual career at 32, maybe 33 if she did a fellowship. That is 13 years of compound interest. Gone, vanished, never happened. The plumber's $400 a month starting at 19 at an average 7% annual return becomes roughly $430,000 by the time he's 45. He didn't touch it. He just let time do what time does. The doctor, at 45, has been a physician for 12 years and is still rebuilding from a decade of negative net worth. I think the cruelest part of this whole thing is that nobody warns you going in. Everyone celebrates when you get into medical school. Nobody says, "Congratulations, you just volunteered to lose the most important decade of your financial life." In 1955, a British historian named C. Northcote Parkinson wrote something originally meant as a joke about bureaucracy. He said, "Work expands to fill the time available for its completion." But the financial version of this rule is just as ruthless. Spending expands to fill the income available for it. That's Parkinson's law applied to money, and high-income professionals fall for it harder than almost anyone else. Here's why. After 13 years of sacrifice, of watching friends buy cars, take vacations, eat well, live normally, a doctor finishing residency feels something deep and psychological. They feel like they've earned it. They've earned the nice house, the BMW, the $400 dinners, and the private school tuition and the country club membership. And they have, right? In terms of raw sacrifice, absolutely. In terms of the actual math of building wealth, This is where everything goes wrong. The fancy neighborhood isn't just expensive to buy into, it's expensive to stay in. Your neighbors drive a certain type of car, so you do too. Your kids go to the school where all the other doctors' kids go. You take the vacations that fit your social circle. None of these decisions feel extravagant in the moment. They feel normal. They feel like what people at your level do. And that word, level, is doing enormous damage. Thorstein Veblen called this conspicuous consumption in 1899. Over 125 years ago, he described exactly what a 2026 attending physician's financial life looks like. Spending not to fulfill a need, but to signal a position, to confirm to yourself and to the people around you that you belong. Here's what nobody in the medical profession wants to admit out loud. There is genuine social pressure on doctors to look a certain way. Not just internal pressure from patients, colleagues, and the institutions they work inside. A plumber can show up to work in a 10-year-old pickup truck and nobody blinks. A surgeon showing up to the hospital in a 10-year-old Civic. People notice. Patients notice. Other physicians notice. It sounds shallow, and it is shallow, but it's also completely real. Dr. James Dahle, a practicing emergency physician who built an entire financial platform called the White Coat Investor, specifically because this problem was so widespread, has written about this exact pressure. He calls it one of the most underestimated forces in physician financial destruction, the expectation of appearance, the cost of looking like what people expect a doctor to look like. Lawyers have their own version: the suit, the office in the right part of the city, the client dinners. The hourly rate you charge signals how important you are, which means the way you look has to match the rate. A plumber's reputation is built on whether the pipe stops leaking. Full stop. No performance required. This is the part that really gets me. The part I don't see enough people talking about. A plumber who's good at his job has a clear path to building real wealth, beyond just his own salary. He hires an apprentice, then another one. Now he has 2 people generating revenue under his name. He buys a second van, trains a third guy, and by the time he's 40, he's running a small business, not just trading his hours for dollars. A doctor cannot do this. Not easily, not in most jurisdictions. Your license covers your work specifically. You can't send a substitute to perform surgery. You can't scale your medical judgment to 10 simultaneous patients the way a plumber can send 10 vans to 10 different houses in the same afternoon. This is a brutal structural ceiling. High income, yes, but fundamentally, it's still trading time for money. And there are only so many hours. The plumber is building a business. The doctor is building a very expensive job. Lawyers have an additional layer to this, and it's worth looking at separately. Most people imagine lawyer and picture someone at a white shoe firm billing $900 an hour. That lawyer exists, but the income distribution for attorneys in the US is what economists call bimodal, meaning it splits into 2 very separate peaks. There's a cluster earning over $200,000 at major firms, and there's a much larger cluster earning between $55,000 and $90,000 doing family law, public defense, immigration work, small-town general practice. The cruel part? Both groups went to the same law school. Both groups carried the same $150,000 to $200,000 in debt. Both groups absorbed the exact same culture that says lawyers are successful. Lawyers look a certain way. Lawyers live a certain kind of life. The ones who didn't land the big law job are servicing 6-figure debt on a salary that wouldn't impress anyone while still maintaining the spending identity of someone who made it. And here's what bothers me most about this story. Nobody in the pre-law advising office talks about this. Nobody sits a 21-year-old down and says 70% of lawyers do not earn big law salaries. Here is your actual debt-to-income ratio will look like in year 3. They let you believe the ceiling is the floor. The plumber isn't a genius. He didn't read 40 finance books. He didn't pick the perfect stocks or time the market. He just started early. He didn't carry a decade of debt before he could begin. He didn't have a social identity demanding that his truck be expensive. He bought a house he could actually afford, not a house that announced something. And when his income went up, which it did steadily as his skills and reputation grew, he didn't automatically expand his spending to match. That gap, that consistent, boring, undramatic gap between earning and spending, that's the whole thing. That is the entire mechanism. There's no secret beyond that. The 2023 Medscape Physician Wealth and Debt Report found that 26% of physicians over the age of 55 had less than $1 million saved for retirement. Physicians over 55, less than $1 million. These are people earning $250,000 or more per year for over 2 decades. Do the math on that and try to make it add up without everything I just told you. It doesn't add up. That's the point. So, what do you actually do with all of this? If you're not a doctor or a lawyer, the lesson is genuinely simple. Start earlier than you think you need to. Keep your lifestyle costs as flat as you can for as long as you can. Let time do what time does. The boring strategy is the strategy that works. If you are a doctor or a lawyer, if this video felt uncomfortably specific, then the one thing worth knowing is that the problem isn't your income. Your income is fine. The problem is the invisible script you've been handed about what your life is supposed to look like at your level. You can rewrite that script. Some people do. The ones who do tend to look from the outside like they're not quite as successful. They drive normal cars. They live in houses that don't announce anything. Their colleagues sometimes raise an eyebrow. And quietly, very quietly, they're the ones who are actually free. Maybe the most interesting question isn't why doctors die broke. Maybe it's why we built an entire system where the people who spent the most years learning how to save lives have the least control over saving their own financial futures. Think about that one for a while.